So much love, joy, and happiness and gratitude to the Holy Spirit and to love. Sometimes you'll hear these little objections running in the background, but it's like, no way, no way, no way to deny this love. It becomes just too powerful. We see how powerful we are. And I was just watching Lisa Fair, who's been a really beautiful guiding light in this journey. She's with Living Miracles and she's traveling in Europe, and she says there's nothing of this world I want. I'm seeing that, and there's so much happiness hearing her say that and feeling that for myself, like more and more. And for some reason, a couple of things have come to mind that seem they're really helpful here. And one is, what is it like to listen and follow the Holy Spirit? And this is an example right now. Like, there's just joy, like, to express. I was just reading in the Course in Miracles about today, like really going, not even knowing what you're going to talk about or say or do, and not have any idea about it actually, like what's going to come out, and just turn it over and, okay, let's just see what Spirit has to say here. And how wondrous that is. We're in the beginning of this seeming journey, word comes up. It seems so inconceivable to do that. And on this journey, it just seems like there are a lot of denials and delays, and I'm seeing that you can't really deny divinity. It's impossible. This love is so great because it's already here. It's already happened that we are love. And so it just feels helpful to express about really what is it like following the Holy Spirit. And I just feel so much joy just saying that. What's it like to follow the Holy Spirit? Well, at first, it can feel uncomfortable and unpredictable, completely unpredictable. And the ego, the thought-based limitation, completely depends on that comfort and that living in the box of identity and suffering and the ideas about the world. And this again, why Jesus says, you'll be sent mighty companions, many, many here. I'm in Mexico and I'm like surrounded. I feel like my whole life is mighty companions. You can see that every being can be a mighty companion in because it's an expression of this totality that's a reflection of ourselves, because of the infinite power to express as a world and then see the reflections. The world, oh, that's so deep. The world's a black hole. The world is an expression of emptiness expressing out seemingly in form. And, I've heard that, and the Vedas talk about it, and all these, Jesus talks about it. As the mind, it's every being can see this. It's not, we know this, it's already known. As Jesus says, you know this already. And in the beginning, it was like, no, Jesus, you can't be right about this. You can't possibly be right, But there's something that knows, obviously, because it started following A Course in Miracles. And a lot of beings talk about how wondrous it was to read A Course in Miracles. It was not wondrous here. There's something about it that was attractive, but it was not. It was, in the beginning, it was like, I've said this before, like the devils were going to get me. I really believed that. Well, obviously, those were beliefs in the mind about the devil and guilt, and I had a Catholic background. This is all choice. I see that now, to have these experiences. Yet it's like, it feels like at first something's really happening to me, this person, this as an object. It's like, wait a minute, I'm praying, I'm going, please tell me. I mean, it was every day I was just praying, no, to go to the top of the ladder that's talked about in the Song of Prayer. It's like I'm not going to ask for anything other than this. Oh my God, I can feel love, just so much love in that. So much, like, there was just a knowing not to ask for anything. Because if everything's given, what would we ask for? That's just so. And Jesus realizes that it takes some time before that scene, that everything is already given, like this entirety of this, but beyond this, like this magnificence is already given, like God's given everything. Yet at that time, there were so many denials, but there was something, and every being knows this, there's something that knows that the world's, something about the way the view of the world was happening. So what is it like to follow the Holy Spirit? Well, first, it can be not comfortable, actually. Yet you'll see in your life that you've been following the Spirit. You'll just start to see that as you go through this journey. You see, well, how do I follow Spirit? Well, you start to see that you have been following Spirit. And, the example that comes to mind, I think I've talked about this before, like going into the prison system and listening to intuition. And Jesus talks about willingness. Well, that was before the course. And I can remember being in a coaching session with a woman, and she came into the session. And I said, well, what would you like to work on today? Because there was just a knowing somehow that these movies that play in the mind could be change in perception, so that there could be a change in perception through something called NLP was a way to change perception. And the whole course is all about changing perception. So she came into the room and I said, well, what would you like to work on today? And she said, well, I stabbed my boyfriend 7 times and I play those movies. That movie plays, the whole thing. And she looked really energetically dead. You could just see it. She was wearing it. And there was a moment that came where I asked myself, well, maybe guilt's true. Maybe she deserves to live this way. And this is just the power of willingness. This is what willingness is, to see it another way. And I just said, is that true? It was like a question to see it differently. And the answer came, no, guilt serves no function. It will be repeated. I mean, it's just this profound, when the opening is to the universe, we know everything. We have access to everything because we are consciousness itself. And to look outside this limited identity that we have. So that's really, it's just this opening. It was tremendous. It was the greatest gift, that opening, to see, okay, and let Spirit use this body. And it seems like really helping someone else, but it truly was the call to my heart to see beyond this idea of killing, of that somebody could do something and they wouldn't be deserving. So it's really accepting my own redemption in a way. That's how the Spirit was working for the exception of redemption, or the atonement, the beginning of the acceptance of the atonement. It was just so miraculous. And there are so many experiences like that in the prison where it just seemed impossible that something could work out. Or I remember having interactions with some men who'd been in my class after the class, and they were talking about it, about why they were in prison. And there was an energetic somewhere in the heart. It's like there's something not it just, again, the intuition, something else. But not really knowing what that is. And like the thought came in to coach. It's like, it was so opening to coach, like Jesus. Like, how can I didn't even know Jesus at the time. It's like, oh my God, what is this killing? What is that about? Like, how can I be the one who goes and talks about killing? Because there were so many beliefs in the world about killing bodies and what function is. Like, I didn't know any of those things. Like, any of those things. I didn't know what it was about, but boy, I prayed and I just cried. And that's sometimes what it's like following the Spirit. You just, there's something inside that's so compelling, and you just don't know, but you're like praying. Like, that's a huge faith. But I'm seeing Jesus has told me that faith doesn't go out. This is why faith is so powerful. Faith actually goes this way. It goes in toward, because it's having faith in the self. It's having faith in the true identity. And the same thing for trust. Trust doesn't go out to another person. It's like a boomerang that comes back right into the heart. So, driving to that prison and, walking in to the prison, where they close those doors, those have the double doors, you just hear them clang. And I'm going into that prison to talk to these two men about killing that there was some kind of energy still around that killing. And I didn't know how I was going to talk to him, actually. This is so miraculous. Like, I just prayed to God, actually. I didn't know about Jesus, but I was just praying. It was really, I think of it now, it's so humbling to be so guided in that and to say yes. And the journey is just like that, where we just say yes, we don't know what it's for. And the conversation was all about forgiveness, and Jesus gave the words before I realized what Jesus was, to have that conversation, to look beyond the form again about, the guilt in the mind and this repetitive nature of this grievance that's held so deep in the mind, and it was all for me. And those are the brothers that saved my life. That brought just opened up the mind so much. So that listening and following becomes fine-tuned, very fine-tuned, and learning to open up to brothers. Even though I walked out of the prison, I was still in prison in the mind. I knew there was a great love opened up, but there was still a lot of K energy and the personal identity. So I did end up hearing, it just felt like guidance to go and live in spiritual community with Living Miracles. I spent some time with them. And it doesn't always feel like love at first. You just think, Jesus, what is happening? How can I be doing this? Because it just felt like burning and anger and everything. But it really is the answer, because the answer's already there, first of all. And as soon as even it's a thought, because of the power of thought, that all these things are going to start washing up out of the subconscious mind to be seen if there's a willingness. Sometimes the willingness isn't there, and that's fine. Jesus will come back around. I mean, I left Living Miracles after a while because it felt frightening and intimidating, and Jesus just doesn't work like that. He works very gently. And I went to Muji. As soon as I went to Muji, it was like going to a landing pad, like it was the landing pad of God, actually. That was just such a high resonance, and it was so easy. Yet there was a lot of burning. There was a lot of looking at personal identity, and there still is that continual looking. But then the miracles start, once the mind starts washing out of some of these ideas experience here, and I was told this too, and it's by other precious beings at Living Miracles and David Hoffmeister. You start living it. You start having so many miracles after just miracles. The less you know, the more the miracles. That's just not knowing anything, that the trust gets built. Like, and again, being sent to Jerusalem, like coming home from Portugal one day and just hearing, okay, next week you're going to Jerusalem, and you start saying yes. And being in Jerusalem and not knowing why. I don't know why I'm in Jerusalem, and feeling uncomfortable, really uncomfortable, just like praying to Jesus, okay, Jesus, I'm here. And it was miracles after miracles. It was, and then going to Bali, you're going to Bali, you just start feeling the resonance more and more. It can be very, very simple. There'll be signs, there'll be symbols, you'll have brothers come. It becomes more and more clear, and just pray for clarity. And it becomes like a resonance of being, and then there's just such, it gets more and more joy and expansive, because it's no longer personal. It's no longer an investment in the person. So at first it is seeing that the Spirit's bringing the mind right into where all the fear places are, all the areas of discomfort, to look and reveal those. I've said this, I love this, Jesus knows where the bones are buried. I love Jesus, he's on the wall, I keep looking at him all the time. And you curse Jesus. I curse Jesus, just cursed, But you start to see it's just a complete turnaround. And this love just becomes so great as these grievances and the meditation and silence, so powerful, was called to that. Just really listening, what's most helpful in this moment. And then you just start constantly saying, what's most helpful? Show me what's most helpful. And it becomes just this really intuitive sense of, okay, this is to be looked at, this is to be looked at. And it opens like a flower opening. And then you start seeing, well, there's nothing of this world that I want. Not the idea that I had about the world. All those ideas start falling away. So it's really so important, the mighty companion piece is to be surrounded, like here in Mexico, surrounded by mighty companions, and this deep looking together. And a focus. The focus helps. The focus can be the speed up. It may not be necessary for every being, but that focus, those weekly ACIM meetings, or however it shows up, or online, there's just so much offered for us to join together and to see what's true. And then, our mighty companions are posting and sharing miracles and sharing that deep listening. And after a while from doing that, you'll just start to be able to do a direct query. You'll hear that little voice. You can ask, is this most helpful? Yes, no, what's most helpful? And you'll just hear those whisper things. And then your movement, as the mind clears out, just becomes in alignment with spirit, because there's no longer an investment in holding an idea of a person together. It becomes so constrictive, very constrictive. And your whole life just changes. Everything changes in that.